Okay, we're live again.
Okay, Mr. McCaskill, are we good to go?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, thank you for your patience. Just getting brought up to date there from Mr. McCaskill and Mrs. Buchanan. And welcome to this meeting of Angus Council on Thursday, the 5th of November. Members, I have to advise you that there's a deputation request from Susan Duncan, who is a Development Officer for Suicide Prevention and Violence Against Women, Angus Council, and Callum Troop, the Manager for Penumbra Services, Angus, in relation to the motion at item 4. Do we agree to hear the deputation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Ali, would you maybe let the two people into the meeting, please?
Okay, that's them both coming in just now.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just go through agenda items 1 to 3. Mr. McCaskill, are there any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair. The apologies from the Provost, the Deputy Provost and Councillor Stewart.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Items 14 and 16, papers 27220. I'm a council appointed director of Angus Alive. I believe I have a specific exclusion. I do intend to sit through both papers and participate if necessary.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Bell?
Thanks, convener. Yes, for item 4, my motion, I'm a non-executive director of Public Health Scotland and an elected member on the board of the Angus Health and Social Care Partnership, both of which I have a specific exemption for. And also items 6, 7 and 8, member of the IGB, which has an exemption, and VAA, the Voluntary Action Angus Board, and non-financial interests, and I'll stay in and vote and discuss.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Devine?
Thanks, convener. It's the same as Councillor Duff, items 14 and 16 with a special exemption because I'm a council appointed director of Angus Alive, but I'll stay in and vote if necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? No, okay, thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, minutes of the council and committees. We are asked to approve as correct records the meeting of this council of the 10th of September 2020 and the special Angus Council of the 19th October 2020. Are they approved?
Approved.
Thank you very much. And for noting minutes of committees, Development Standards, Civic Licensing, Children Learning Committee, Scrutiny and Audit Committee and Communities Committee. Do we agree to note?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now hear from our two speakers, and it's Susan Duncan and Callum Troop. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Susan. And I think, Susan, you're going to speak first, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
That's fine. Well, you have 10 minutes between the two of you, and I will remind you, if you're taking 5 minutes each, if that's what you intend to do, I will give you a prompt when you've spoken for 4 minutes, and there will possibly be questions after Callum has spoken. Okay, so you're free to speak now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Susan Duncan, Development Officer for the Suicide Prevention in Angus. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm here to represent the Angus Mental Health and Wellbeing Network. We are all living through challenging times, and it has perhaps never been more important to talk about mental health, well-being, and being suicide aware. Social isolation, entrapment, and loneliness contribute to suicide risk and are likely to increase during the pandemic. There are a variety of changes taking place both locally and nationally, which bring optimism for change and a real chance to make a difference for the citizens and workers in Angus. The voices of people with lived experience, both in relation to mental health and suicide, are at the heart of improvement programmes and national campaigns. Mental health well-being, and being suicide aware is relevant for us all. We can talk about a journey or a continuum that can be impacted by so many life events. For example, loss of a job, a bereavement, worry about finances, and these have all been brought into sharp focus recently. We can talk about no matter where anyone is on their journey. We know that a caring, compassionate response can make a difference, and the opportunity to talk to someone and be heard is crucial. While that offers challenges at the moment, services are responding flexibly and with innovation to meet local need. The digital space contains risks and creates opportunities. Locally, there are initiatives being developed to reach out to people in creative ways. The Angus Mental Health and Wellbeing Network is the multi-agency group responsible for setting the strategic direction for mental health, wellbeing and suicide prevention in Angus. The network is chaired by Mr. Bill Troop, who is head of mental health services in Angus, and there are a range of statutory and third sector representatives involved. The network will be happy to respond to any questions you may have after the presentation today. The overarching vision for Angus is to support all agencies to work together to promote prevention and early intervention opportunities and activities, service improvements, and effective links with other strategic planning groups. There is a direct link with the Angus Community Planning Partnership, and more recently links have been made with the Tayside Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy and Change Programme, which is in place to develop a strategy and a subsequent improvement programme for Tayside called Listen, Learn, Change. This is in relation to mental health services and is in response to the independent inquiry report Trust and Respect. Along with the changes to statutory services, there is an ever-growing recognition of the importance of the local third sector and voluntary organisations and their role in communities and with individual support. There is a wide range of agencies in Angus, and you will soon hear from Callum from Penumbra about the work that they do. Other examples include Reach Across, who primarily support people in Angus who have been affected by suicide. They have been fully funded by the community and are staffed by volunteers. They provide counselling, facilitate groups and peer support. Reach Across was initiated by the founder in memory of her son who completed suicide. Reach Across is moving to larger premises this month to cope with the demand for support. Angus Creative Minds started in October 2019 and is designed to remove health and social barriers for creative activities. In response to COVID, they obtained short-term funding, which allowed them to reach out to over 300 people in Angus. They have reported that levels of anxiety, stress, and worry are high. Many people talk of increased levels of isolation. Increased demand and growing pressures reinforce the need for easily accessible trauma-informed services. Specifically, in relation to suicide prevention, there is a Tayside Suicide Awareness website and app that highlights and signposts key messages and safety planning. In September this year, the National Suicide Prevention Leadership Group launched a new campaign, and it was informed by thousands of people across suicide. It invites people to pledge their support to the national movement for change. In Scotland, on average, 2 people die every day by suicide, and at any one time, around 1 in 20 people are contemplating suicide. The campaign comes at a time when the impact of the pandemic on mental health remains high on the national agenda. The key messages in the campaign, which I would like to use to drive forward suicide awareness in Angus, are: we should be confident to talk about suicide. We should be confident to connect someone to the right support. Language is important. Saying the word suicide isn't a trigger. It can help save a life. We must tackle stigma around suicide. We need people like you to join the movement for change. The Scottish Government's vision, which is shared by partners in mental health and suicide prevention, is of a Scotland where suicide is preventable, where help and support is available to anyone contemplating suicide and to those who have lost a loved one to suicide. Suicide prevention is everyone's business. Thank you, and I will now hand over to Callum, who will tell you about Penumbra.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to attend today. My name is Callum Troop, and I'm the support manager for Penumbra Services in Angus. Penumbra is a national mental health charity, and here in Angus, we work within the third sector. I'm here today to explain our role and experiences as a suicide prevention service and the wider part we play in the suicide prevention network. The service we provide for the partnership is the Angus Suicide Prevention Support Service, or ASPSS. ASPSS provided through Penumbra is available to all adults living in Angus who experiences thoughts of suicide or may have attempted suicide. Support is also available for family members, carers, or friends of adults experiencing suicidal thoughts. The service is designed to meet individual needs and promote safety, well-being, and recovery. Support is provided via telephone, email, and pre-lockdown face-to-face. The helpline number is 0800 135 7899. ASPSS has evolved and adapted to new needs over time. However, it essentially remains a person-centred support service and no one-size-fits-all. Service started in January 2019, and for the very first quarter, we received 26 new people to the service. And by the end of the year 2019, 144 had made contact. In our last quarter, that was 244 had made contact. That's a 9% increase per quarter. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, we are experiencing a change in those seeking the service. Since the start of the year, those aged between 18 and 25 have become the highest age group to make contact. 44% of those who contacted the service in the most recent quarter were under the age of 30. This has increased from the end of last year. These 244 contacts are people that live in Angus and all have their unique recovery stories. This involves designing support around their needs. Two of these stories I would like to share. One was pre-lockdown and one during lockdown. Last year, ASPSS received a referral from another Angus third sector agency. Our recovery practitioner contacted this person for an initial appointment within 48 hours. They explained their situation, which has caused them significant distress. They'd been experiencing frequent suicidal thoughts and describes those thoughts being due to a number of reasons, mainly financial difficulties. The person had challenges accessing benefits and no stable income meant they could not afford basic essential items such as food. They were living through crisis grants, and as a result of this, the person's mental health and physical health continued to deteriorate. In order to support this person, the recovery practitioner contacted statutory services involved. Appointments were made with their GP, contact was made with welfare rights, and referrals made to the local food bank promptly. As support continued for a couple of weeks, contact was made to social work's first contact team as this became an adult concern and protection issue. Regular support was put in place with the housing team. As support was now built through these services, ASPSS gradually moved on from the support network. During peak lockdown, the recovery practitioner received a call from another person explaining that they were struggling with increased suicidal thoughts and low mood. The person started with one-to-one support sessions, working on self-management materials, including a safe plan. Through these sessions, the recovery practitioner and person identified isolation and loneliness as a presenting issue for suicidal thoughts. The worker was able to make contact with a local befriending service and arrange weekly call with a befriender. The worker also passed on information about the local listening service in their GP surgery if required in future. I've used these two examples as they demonstrate that two people at risk of suicide require different support. In Angus, we also provide 3 other services: the Angus Nova project, which is long-term support, focusing on social inclusion; Justice Wellbeing Service, supporting males in the Community Justice Service; and the South Angus Peer Service. South Angus Peer Service operates in GP surgeries and is staffed by peer workers. These are workers with their own mental health lived experiences. All our services provide suicide prevention work. Lately, we have seen a surge of presenting issues such as isolation and loneliness, work-related stress due to working from home and furlough, and delayed bereavement. As a suicide prevention service, we work with and support people to be proactive rather than reactive. It's important for us to maintain and strengthen our continued relationship with the third sector. Our service acts as a gateway to these services and first point of contact for those at risk of suicide. I hope to have demonstrated that suicide prevention is everyone's business, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you both, Susan and Callum, and I didn't stop you at 10 minutes because I think it's a very, very important subject, and I think I'll let you both finish, so thank you both. Any questions from members? Councillor Sturrock.
Thank you, convener. Well, thanks to Susan and Callum for the information on this important topic, which we all support in your best endeavours. Just a query on the actual numbers. You mentioned, Callum, 244 contacts. Does that include any referrals, say, like from the Samaritans, from Dundee and Aberdeen, etc.?
Our service is contracted for Angus, so it's people living within the Angus locality, so registered with GPs in Angus or with the community mental health team.
Yeah, no, what I just meant, you know, Samaritans have obviously been a well advertised organisation, and people may feel that they can contact them direct. That's what I mean. So do the Samaritans redirect them to yourselves?
We've not had a case of that, but we are in contact with Samaritans and Breathing Space as well, such as with our service. And we do, you know, make Samaritans and Breathing Space aware of our service available as well.
Okay, thank you, Callum. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sturrock. Any other questions? Councillor Boyd? Brian, you're on mute.
There we are. Is that a bit
That's
better?
it. That's better.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, mind-blowing presentations by both these people. With so much now being on social media, and to be honest, I think that social media can sometimes be a curse for young people who are feeling lonely and so on. Are you involving yourselves with things on Facebook? Because we see the Samaritans coming up on Facebook or whatever. And is there anything that you could maybe send us that, if you think it's worthwhile, could send us links? So though I don't have a council page, I do have lots of friends on it, and I think it's something that if there's something there, we can just put forward links and share as much as we can for this vital service at this point in time.
Yeah, certainly. We've got our own Facebook page for Penumbra Angus Services, and just Penumbra is a national one where we do advertise the suicide prevention service a lot. Lately, especially with the lockdown, we've been utilising it a lot more, promoting the service details, but also putting on like useful techniques of looking after your well-being. The work we've been doing in Angus, even like blog spots from our workers. So yeah, we're happy to pass on details of our social network, and be linking as well with Susan's network there as well. So yeah, we can pass that on.
Yeah, that would be great if you just make sure it goes to all councillors, because and then I only can recommend my colleagues to turn around and then put them on to community councils, to other groups. We have an hour Courier, we have an hour Canusty, we have an hour Arbroath. These are the things that, you know, there are people sitting lonely looking at these websites, sometimes feeling that everything's cheery elsewhere. And if we can encourage the people that run these websites to send the links on as well and share these links, I think this would be advantageous for anyone in Angus.
Can I come in at this point as well to say that the Tayside website, suicide prevention or awareness website and app, the links for that have all of the local contacts. They also have a page for people to take to look at safety planning for themselves or for a loved one. So that can be shared. And one of the initiatives I alluded to is that we're actually in the process of developing at Angus what's called an infomercial, which will hopefully be available December, if not January, in order to be shared widely amongst all forms of social media, we hope, so that it will do exactly as you're asking for. It will raise awareness via social media about all of the supports that are available in Angus.
Thank you. And my other final comment, or a quick comment, is that we know that the Courier is in here and they've had to move to social, to putting things on that. Maybe Graham Brown, who's here today, could maybe get an article in that's led through their Courier internet pages as well. I know you can't answer, but that's something for them to maybe take on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Councillor Blaze.
Yes, thank you, convener, and thank you, Susan and Callum, for really excellent presentations. I was doing a bit of work for BAA at the start of the COVID pandemic, and I was really quite shocked at just how big a problem social isolation is. And it's not necessarily where you would think it would be. It seems to be very widespread. And I was just wondering, do you have any knowledge or even just anecdotal inklings, if you like, about how much of this social isolation was prevalent before COVID came along, and has COVID just exacerbated what was already there, or has there been a big increase in individuals who are affected by this?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Braze. Yeah, since the start of lockdown, isolation and loneliness it was and continues to remain a common referral to all our services, regardless of it results in suicidal risks there. Being Angus being quite rural, towns being cut off, people being cut from support there. But we have seen that as an increase in presenting issues. And like you were alluding to there, that is not where we're expecting it. So we are seeing an increase, how to phrase this, sort of the more suburban people contacting our service, people that are so new to mental health services and support, that, is to do with furlough, people that are working in big public offices, working in call centres. They had a really good network there. They had a really good network of friends. And because of the lockdown, they've been completely cut off from all that. So their well-being has just taken a massive dip. So we are seeing an increase in isolation and loneliness, and also where it's coming from.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I do wish you well with your work. And as Councillor Boyd said, it would be good to get some more details to email from you of these various phone numbers, etc. Thanks.
Certainly.
Thank you, Councillor Blaze. Anyone else? No? Okay, well, on behalf of the members of the Council, Susan and Callum, thank you very much to both of you for your presentations today. And I'll just echo what Councillor Blaze and Councillor Boyd said, and it would be good to get some more information about what you do, and we can pass it on to our community groups. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, members, agenda item number 4, motions in terms of Standing Order 25. Councillor Bell has submitted a motion. So Councillor Bell, you have 5 minutes, but again, I will be flexible because this is a very important subject. So the screen or the virtual screen is yours. Thank you.
Nope, that's it. Got it now. Thank you. Thanks, convener. I appreciate that, and a huge thank you to Susan and Callum for your moving and powerful contributions. And I'm really grateful to you both for working with me from day one on this. No pen had touched paper. This was a collaboration, and I'm really grateful to their full commitment and engagement on this, which for me perfectly demonstrates the importance of the whole spectrum of holistic care and support for people. Mental health, well-being and the impact of COVID-19 affects us all, and it affects us all around this virtual table as individuals, as representatives and as decision makers around our responsibilities to make sure Angus is a vibrant, healthy, safe place to live. That will mean different things to different people. So regardless of where we all are on our journey, it's important to reflect that improving or maintaining our mental well-being is vital, and we may need support to do that. We need to break the stigma around these issues and around asking for help. We are not weak to ask for help. We are strong. Mental health and well-being are key priorities for Public Health Scotland, which recognises the deepening of issues caused by the pandemic. And you can read its strategic plan online. It's called A Scotland Where Everybody Thrives. And the COSLA Blueprint for Local Government for Recovery and Renewal emphasises the importance of well-being as COVID impacts our local government finances, our services, and importantly, on our amazing workforce who are deserving of our recognition for all that they have done and continue to do. The importance of fiscal flexibility has never been greater. In fact, because we don't yet know the full impact on people and communities of this pandemic. I'm highlighting this as a major concern right now because we need to consider how we might respond without really knowing what the picture looks like yet. None of us do, but we do have indications of how damaging COVID-19 has been, with emerging rises in domestic abuse, food insecurity and hunger, loss of jobs, damage to the economy, and Callum spoke really profoundly about the impact on individuals. It's so vital that we keep track and flex our services, our budgets accordingly. At last week's Angus Health and Social Care Partnership Integrated Joint Board, we discussed at length about how mental health services in Tayside, and specifically Angus, are transforming. Strategic planning is taking account of COVID-19 and of the recommendations contained within the Strang Review and Healthcare Improvement Scotland's report. The Angus Mental Health and Wellbeing Network comprises all sectors and services that support our citizens, and of particular importance, people who use our services and advocacy. The third sector, like Voluntary Action Angus, Angus Women's Aid, Reach Across, Penumbra and Angus Creative Minds, has provided lifelines to people in need in partnership across Angus. You can see more in the community plan later in our agenda, and on Tuesday I sent every councillor links to the draft Tayside strategy. Our ambitions are to deliver significant benefits for our citizens and our workforce, with a key focus on prevention and early intervention, supporting people at home, close to their support networks in their communities, even if they're in crisis. And this includes the return of 7-day crisis resolution home treatment services across Angus. And it's fantastic that we now have a peer worker in every GP practice in Angus. As a former Safe Talk suicide awareness trainer, I know how vital suicide prevention is to skill up our frontline workforces and individuals across our communities, and to protect our workforce from harm, including vicarious trauma, distress and stress. We are seeing an upturn in mental health concerns and people presenting with suicide ideation across Scotland, and that breaks my heart. That's why I'm asking this council to support United to Prevent Suicide, which is a new unifying movement for suicide prevention in Scotland, supported by COSLA. I would also ask council to take cognizance of the importance of trauma-informed training for our employees, which is an emerging area that COSLA endorses and will be providing training on. We know people with mental health problems, stress and distress are not necessarily already engaged with our mental health services. Many people struggle along on their own, but they might be engaging with housing, welfare rights, education, social work, and with community groups. Alongside the information we need to capture, we need to communicate our visions and values in this area. And I seek support for a follow-up reporting mechanism to outline how we do this. As a council and as councillors, we can make sure our decisions have care, compassion, kindness, health and well-being at their core, because all our mental health matters. And to that end, I commend my motion to you and implore this council to agree these important asks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. 5 minutes and 6 seconds. Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much. Do you have a seconder?
I do. Councillor Speed has agreed to second this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Speed?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wholeheartedly second this motion, and my heartfelt thanks to Councillor Bell for her ongoing dedication and commitment to mental health and wellbeing within Angus, and for bringing this motion during such a critical time. And thanks to Susan and Callum for their support, deputations and endorsements. I believe it's important that we pause and reflect on the momentous shift in public opinion of mental health and policy surrounding it, as well as the treatment and care of people with mental health problems. However, more so, recognise that there is still a long way to go, with much work to be done to break the stigma that still exists, to help nurture and grow love, care and compassion within our communities, whilst recognising that we all have a part to play, and most importantly, improve our services and supports to those in need of our help. We will achieve this best by continuing to listen and respond to those with lived experience and those who have tragically lost a loved one through mental health and suicide. We really do need to listen, learn and change. Councillor Bell has already outlined the examples of local developments within the Health and Social Care Partnership. For example, enhanced community support for community health mental health services, which includes a range of newly introduced roles from peer support to more specialised clinical practitioners that will be able to offer support to people at whatever stage they are on in their journey, with an emphasis on early intervention and prevention. I feel it's imperative today to shine a spotlight also on children and the increase in young people who are affected by or who are suffering mental health. It's fundamental that we provide whole family support and ensure that the transition from children to adult services is as seamless as possible. I'm particularly encouraged by the development of the 7-day service, as we know mental health affects people's lives all day, every day. There is often no escape. And in your darkest hour, it's crucial that there is someone to turn to. With this said, I fully support the United to Prevent Suicide movement and would like to emphasise the fact that saying the word suicide isn't a trigger and that we all have a role to play to help and prevent. Mental health is something that none of us are immune to, and we know the harsh reality and impact that the pandemic has had and will continue to have. We have already seen an increase in the number of people needing support. We are all much more at risk. All our lives will have changed in some way throughout this time, and although social distancing restricts us, it is important that we still find safe ways to check in with each other, our neighbours, our family, our friends, and those who may be experiencing loneliness and isolation. In my role as Vice Convener of the Integration Joint Board, I know how vital it is that there is effective partnership working in order to provide quality and sustainable care, and that we monitor closely progress and timescales set in order to achieve best outcomes. We must continue to raise awareness, provide training opportunities, and utilise our finite resources astutely to be able to provide the wraparound care that people experiencing mental health problems need. We must also continue to drive home the message that mental health really is everyone's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Any comments? Councillor Laurie.
Yep, thanks, Convener. First of all, I'd like to thank Susan and Callum for their deputations. I'd like to thank Councillor Bell for submitting this very welcome motion on mental health. Mental illness is something that affects a lot of people in our communities, and the pandemic has only exacerbated this, increasing isolation and making services a little bit harder to access. I agree with all of the points in the motion, and I just want to ask if Councillor Bell would accept a very small amendment. In the line where we're asked to monitor COVID-related issues such as mental health, domestic abuse and hunger and poverty, I was just wondering if we could include addiction and substance misuse with these issues as well. This is something that goes hand in hand with mental illness, and I imagine that dependency on drugs and alcohol will have gone up throughout lockdown. So it's an issue that I really want to make sure we keep our eyes on. Is this something that we can include?
Can I come in, convener?
Yeah,
just provide that reassurance that the strategy going forward completely takes on board that point around co-occurring issues for people. So it's in the strategy, and you should be able to see that reflected in the links that I sent you out on Tuesday. I'd be happy to add that line in rather than take an amendment, but you have that absolute assurance that services are much more integrated in that way. It's taken a long time to get there. When I first started becoming involved in health campaigning work around the early 90s, you know, dual diagnosis was being talked about. It was an obvious thing. You know, people with mental health problems had co-occurring, perhaps alcohol and substance misuse problems in many cases, not all. And people needing help were batted around from service to service. I think we're really getting somewhere on that now, Councillor Laurie. So I hope you feel reassured that that is absolutely the case.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Laurie, are you happy with that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bell, for your reassurances. If we could include a line, I would really appreciate that. I don't want to put a formal amendment in or take it to a vote or anything, but if you could include a line on that just to keep the focus on it, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, convener. Thank you, Julie, for bringing this motion. I wholeheartedly support it, and I was very interested in both the presentations. I have one slight concern, and that is that we talk about mental health, and that creates the stigma. We all have mental health. Some of it is good, some of it isn't so good. And I'd love to see some way that we can talk about mental health without the stigma there, about talking about issues in mental health and, you know, an absence of good mental health. Somebody is, it's difficult to explain this one. Somebody has a problem with their mental health. How do you describe it without creating the stigma of saying, well, they've got mental health issues? Because we're all there. We've all got mental health. And I think we need to find some way of being able to address this issue without that stigma being there. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other comments? No. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Councillor Blaze.
Yes, sorry. I think Councillor Moore is quite right. We all have mental health, but the way we destigmatize it is by talking about it. That's all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No. Okay. Councillor Bell, do you wish to sum up?
Well, just briefly, I'm happy to address Councillor Moore's point, and my ambition today, and including Susan and Callum in this conversation as well, is around increasing the forums in which we talk about this and recognising that mental health is important to all of us. And if we are currently experiencing good mental health, then it's important that we keep that. And become aware of what causes that to dip and the actions that we can take. So I'm hopeful that in all the other arenas that we operate in as elected members, that we can contribute to a positive conversation as individuals around the importance of mental health as well as physical health, and the two can impact on each other. it's a very holistic way of looking at ourselves as individuals. And if we can take a leadership role in that and support others to have that conversation, then that's all to the good. And the suicide prevention work is really important, and perhaps more of us could avail ourselves of suicide awareness training and become comfortable around picking up cues that people put out when they are having suicidal thoughts and not shying away from that conversation. We can all have a massive impact on people's health and well-being, and provide a literal lifeline to them if we go towards that conversation and reach out to them if people are expressing suicidal thoughts or articulating it in a way that gives you cause for concern. So, you know, let's get on and do that. And it would be fantastic if this council as an entity could sign up for this United to Prevent Suicide campaign and really make that visible. We're a big employer in this area. Lots of people use our services, and let's lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell, and I can only echo what you and other members have said. It's a very important, a very everyday issue, mental health. Members, is the motion agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 5, appointments. We are asked to note that Councillor King will replace Councillor MacDonald on the Children and Learning Committee, and that Councillor Whiteside will replace Councillor MacDonald on the Angus Educational Trust. Do we note these?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I don't have hard copies of anything today like yourselves, so I might be a bit slow at going through some of these, but the next one is agenda item number 6, is the Angus Community Plan Performance Report 2019-20. We have the report and the recommendations in front of us. Are there any questions? Councillor Devine.
Thank you, convener. We have in front of us today 3 very long reports, and I can only say thank you so much to the officers for bringing them forward. I don't want to make any speeches about it, but I would like to ask a couple of questions actually. One is on page 50. I hadn't heard of Touchpoint, and I think this sounds such a good project with Dundee and Angus College, but I was wondering whether it had managed to continue in any shape or form over the pandemic phase, and what are the plans for that? I don't know if anybody can answer me that question. Then on page 65, it was about participatory budgeting. 66, sorry, because we all recognise that there were 4 different ways in which this was carried out. And I was wondering if it has been decided yet which was the best way, and whether that will be continuing this year or will it be into next year. It's obviously a lot of work. Our communities workers have been very and are still very involved with the pandemic. So I was just wondering where we were seeing this going.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Is the report author here? Is Alison Smith here, or can some of the other officers answer Councillor Devine's questions? No.
Provost, I can answer the question in relation to participatory budgeting, if that's of use.
Yes, Mrs. Cowie, please. Thank you.
Yes, there were 4 different ways that we conducted the participatory budgeting in the localities last year. We haven't determined which was the best way. We are obviously running short on time to run the same participatory budgeting scheme this year due to the COVID lockdown. We are looking at some sort of small community grants in terms of COVID recovery, but not running in the same way that the scheme did last year. And we're also looking at putting some money towards mainstreaming from this year's budget as well, but we won't be running it in the same way that we did last year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that would be great, because a lot of small groups managed to get money last year, which was very helpful for food hunger and activities over holiday periods. So that would be very welcome again, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Anyone else?
I'll ask somebody else about Touchpoint off screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hands.
Thanks, convener. I just want to make a comment about Billy's story on page 57, I think it was. And when I was reading it, I thought, well, you know what, this council has really gone quite a long way from where we were before. We've obviously, as members, had a lot of discussions with different papers over the years as well about Digital Angus and digital inclusion. And I was really, really pleased to see that as a case example, because it really does highlight the difficulties that some people can find themselves in through no fault of their own. And obviously systems are set up to work one way, but through COVID, there was actual support that was a wraparound support for individuals at that point. So again, it's just a marker comment really to see that we have seen examples of really good working, and I think that just shows Angus Council and our partners working at their best and showing in a practical way how we can actually really support our people in Angus. So I just really wanted to comment on it and say well done to everybody, because I just thought it was fantastic seeing that joint working and seeing it acknowledged in a report as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hands, for these comments. Thank you. Councillor Cheap.
Here we go. Sorry for that delay. Thank you, Councillor Fotheringham, Chair, whatever. On this one, just like to go back to something that Councillor Devine mentioned again, going back to participatory budgeting. And I think on that one, I'm quite glad to hear that there's nothing being done, if you like, officially on this, because I think we need to learn from the mistakes of last year and the very quick methodology that was put in place in the end. And we think we all found out that the results weren't the best for the way it was carried out. And I think if we want to take the communities with us and the groups that are seeking assistance and on projects and things, we need to take a little bit step back and make that process much, much better than it was last year. I know we've discussed this before, but I think it's worth reiterating again that we don't rush into a process of PB, and it's well thought out and planned well in advance before it's let loose, if you like. It's just something that I think there was a lot of feedback on it last year, and there wasn't a lot of great feedback, and I think we should learn from that, just to reaffirm that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cheap. Councillor Boyd. You're on mute, Councillor Boyd.
Yes, I was. Councillor Cheap's beat me to most of the things that he was going to say there. I'm agreeing with him, and I've scribbled down here a helpful comment to Kate that I know there are 4 different ones. The one you should not choose is what happened in South Angus, because we were definitely at the bottom of the pile, and that one did not work. It was an embarrassment what happened at meetings that were held at Carnoustie High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Councillor McMillan Douglas.
Thank you very much, convener. I would just like to welcome this report. I think what it really shows to me is that us as a council working very much together with other partners, as indeed did Councillor Bell's motion. And that has to be welcomed. And some councillors may remember that at the time of our last budget, we actually set some money aside to encourage partners to work together to deliver services more directly and more effectively to those people to whom they should be delivered. And this is showing quite major progress in that direction. So I was very pleased about that. and just wanted to comment on it. Thank you, convener.
Thank you very much, Councillor McMillan Douglas. Councillor Fairweather.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a little bit gazumped there. I thought we were on questions, but it seems right we've had a number of comments. But on saying that, I'm quite happy with the comments that have been made. So if we're finished with questions, Chair, can I go on to a comment, please?
Absolutely. I did ask Councillor Fairweather if there was any more questions, and at that point, Councillor Hands kicked off the comments. So we are on to comments.
Okay, right. Thank you, Chair. Okay, what I do want to say is I'm actually delighted tonight to move this report. But first of all, can I thank Scott Gibson, who is the chair from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. He took over from Grant Ritchie, who was Angus and Dundee College, and who is retired. And Scott has done a fantastic job coming in with a lot of his knowledge in what goes on at ACPP. This is all about working with our partners, and it's about delivering priorities. Priorities which include reducing child poverty, improving mental health and well-being, which we've heard about earlier today, and improving accessibility and connectivity. I've been involved in that particular partnership, and I must say, when I first went in, I found it a particular eye-opener, and the work that is being done and the differences is making is quite exceptional. So delighted and pleased today, Chair, to move this report.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Any other comments? No. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 7 is the Angus Council Plan Annual Performance Report 2019-20. Any questions? Councillor Devine.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Just very specific questions here. Page 85, it's about the percentage of it's not vulnerable children, eligible 2-year-olds. Now that's sitting at 66.2%. I just can't remember what it was before. I mean, that sounds quite a reasonable number, although I know it's been quite a challenge to get it to there. I would have liked to have known what it was last year. I don't know if anybody can help me with that.
Okay.
Councillor Devine, the chair, I'm happy to come in on that just now.
Yes, Jim, of course.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Devine, I don't have that data to hand at the moment, but I'll ask my colleague Victoria Smith to provide that to you and also to the rest of the council chamber.
Thank you, because it is a really, really important thing. These young people gain so much in terms of speaking, playing, vocabulary, and it's a great start in life for them.
Absolutely agree, and our early years strategy is certainly utilising that to the max.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Devine. Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Councillor Fairweather.
Mine will be a comment. So if there are other questions, Chair, just take those, please.
Okay, Councillor Wan, is yours a question? Derek, you were on mute. Oh, it's a comment. I actually can't hear you, although your mic's on. Councillor Hands.
Yes, thanks, convener. I do actually have a question this time, and apologies to Councillor Fairweather. I thought we were on comments at the last report. It's on page 96, I think it is, and it's referring to the equal pay gap. It says that the equal pay gap has increased from -7.8 to -0.68, I think it was. Surely that has to be decreased in that it's going from a negative number to a smaller negative number.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond, is this one for you? I thought so.
That's out with my scope just now. I can.
If I could
Yeah.
come in, convener, it's Mark Armstrong. I can't actually see that section in the report, Councillor Hands, but I don't think Sharon Faulkner's on the call, but we'll get that looked into and get a note out to all members.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No more questions. Okay, we will go to comments. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, hear you now. Yeah.
But mine is specifically on page 86 under my portfolio of children and learning. And it's just really a quick statement and comment I would like to make on the council plan annual performance. In the early years learning and childcare, we started in Angus delivering 1,140 hours in August as promised, even though the Scottish Government gave local authorities a year's grace. And I know I've said this before, but I'd like to continue saying it. But this has been able to happen because of our forward-thinking staff preparing and dealing with the private providers, meaning we were able to early on to partner with them, as Carnoustie and Forth early years centres were delayed in construction phase due to the pandemic. This means we have fulfilled our promise to the parents and carers of children in early years. Our Angus Schools for the Future ambitious 30-year plan is still being worked on, and we have had positive meetings with the Scottish Government, and more meetings are scheduled in the following weeks to provide ministers with details of our exciting plans. In particular, this will be concentrated on Monifieth, Montrose and Arbroath. Then on to supporting families. Our redesigned children, families and justice services is focusing on the needs of children and their families with support provided by locality teams. We have managed to fund this by utilising the Attainment Challenge Fund, which means since October 19, we have had 3 inclusion support workers working with 22 young people across the community, at home and in school. And finally, it's been an extremely challenging year, as we all know, with no respite in sight for all of our staff here at Angus Council. However, I would like to extend my personal thanks, and I'm sure all the thanks from the councillors, for the great work that we have seen from teachers, school staff, and of course our management and education department. Without the extra effort, we would not have managed to make the progress we have. So I would just like to say thank you, all of them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure every member in this meeting today will agree with these comments. Councillor Fairweather, your hand's still up. Is yours a comment?
Yeah, mine's a comment. Right. Thank you, Chair. I'm again going to be delighted to move this report. There are a number of things I want to highlight from this report. A significant one for me is in relation to the Cities deal. On 24th September, I received a letter from Ian Stewart MP, the Under-Secretary of State for Scotland, advising me he had secured agreement from the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, the Right Honourable Stephen Barclay MP, that proposals which Angus Council submitted to the UK Government in February have been accepted and will benefit from 26.5 million Angus Fund. The deal, as you know, is still to be signed, but it is good to know through our hard work we have secured this funding for the future of Angus. In particular, our Mercury programme. This year, negotiations with Sea Green to secure good settlement for Angus and an environmental friendly solution to the championship course is a great achievement. As a consequence of this, we worked with Montrose Port and organised the Sea Green supply chain event, which attracted over 90 businesses interested in becoming involved in our area. In our Angus Council plan, we promised to maximise inclusion, reduce inequalities. We have created a joint child poverty action plan. We are delivering 1,140 hours of childcare. We have witnessed strong, resilient communities working together to decide how best to allocate participatory budgeting funds. Our business survival rate increased from 63% in 2017-18 to 66% in 2018-19. Figures for 1920 are not available yet, but our businesses, through the granting of government finance, and our teams have been working on quick turnaround times to do that. We see in the report the economic impact of tourism increased in Angus. In terms of efficiency, as a council, we have seen a broader and wider range of services accessible online. We have continued to reduce our building occupancy, and we are turning our attentions to prevention and intervention to support people to not fall into targeted or additional services need. There are things in this report that outline we must continue to focus on people priorities. The numbers of children living in poverty in Angus has increased, and that's a sad thing to have to say. And although we have seen an increase in children and young people going into positive destinations, our SQA exam results are slightly down. The report covers 2019-20, when we had yet to see the impact of the pandemic. Our focus on economy, people and place will continue to ensure we remain resilient as a council and a county. Chair, there are an awful lot and numerous good news stories in this report, and I'm sure that members will have their wish to speak regarding them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Macmillan Douglas.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Because I'm just not sure if I'm on. Thank you very much.
Clear.
Like Councillor Fairweather, I hugely welcome this report. I think the structure is very good, very boring in a way to comment on that, but we've set objectives, and the objectives are now, the performance is measured against the objectives. And that really is the way to manage things and to get things done. So I'm incredibly grateful for the way the officers have led on that. I do think the performance, if I can just borrow one of Councillor Fairweather's normal words, the performance is stunning. I am always pleased to see us attracting outstanding companies providing high quality employment into Angus. We set that as an objective when we came into office, and it really is being achieved. In the oil and gas sector, there's Baker Hughes, and there's some others around as well, but there's Baker Hughes we know. In renewables, there's SSE. In farming, not coming into the area, but the whole development of technology within farming, and the way that Angus is taking a UK lead on this is under our Tay Cities programme is really incredibly good news as far as I'm concerned. We are spending some 36% of our procurement money with local providers. I'd like to see that going higher, but still it is a pretty good performance. And as I think everybody knows, I'm always pleased to see how our high quality rural broadband is continuing to expand, particularly in Northern Angus, and is helping businesses to locate in that area. And I'm extremely biased on this, of course, being one of the members for Courier and Dean. The survival rate for businesses has increased, and much credit must go to our economic development team, Alison Smith and Councillor Davey for this. The figures on households bringing up children with no employment is I think, depressing, but something, if we can raise the whole economic standard in Angus, which we are doing, that will be dealt with in time. The overall picture is encouraging and I think uplifting, and it makes all our work on this so worthwhile. And I'm very happy to second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Macmillan Douglas. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Both the Leader of the Council and the Deputy have mentioned the Tay City deal. And I'll remind members that the heads of terms were signed 2 years ago in Perth. And as Councillor Fairweather has mentioned, there was a great deal of expectation at the last Tay City deal meeting in early October that the deal would be signed in October. And of course, it's not been signed. And I think that is hugely frustrating. There's an awful lot of work gone into it by Vivian Smith and others for the council. and it really is very frustrating that it's not been signed. And for those who perhaps are not sure why it's been delayed, essentially the Scottish Government have put in money over 10 years, 150 million plus a side deal of another 50. The UK Government have put in 150 million, and the debate or the issue is the UK Government wants to supply this money over 15 years, not 10. And this causes a problem for a number of the large projects at the Hutton Institute just outside Dundee at Invergowrie. Now, on a day when the Bank of England have just announced that they're going to do another £150 billion worth of quantitative easing, that's printing money. What the UK Government are arguing about is whether they're going to supply £15 million a year to Tay City Deal or 10, so a difference of £5 million, literally small change. I find that hugely upsetting and really not a lot of support to Tayside and to Angus. So really, it's a poor show.
Chair, can I come back in?
Yes, of course, Councillor Fairweather.
Right, thank you. Obviously, Councillor Duff doesn't see or doesn't read the newspapers, and he is probably aware that my understanding, the reason it has not been signed, is that the Scottish Government, the UK Government, are now looking at the signing coming up because they are looking to go to the 10-year profile as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairweather. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. Just a few quick points. I'd like to welcome the point on page 83 about the modern apprentice in Angus. I think that's a great success story. We've got quite a good record with positive destinations anyway, but this is another option available to our young people and a great success. Very proactive approach. Councillor Vaughan mentioned the early learning childcare, and I totally agree. I think it's a great achievement of the team to have implemented the increased hours. So congratulations to all of you. I think we'll also have to acknowledge the incredible investment, the incredible capital investment made by the Scottish Government to make this possible. So I'd like to just bring that to your attention. And finally, the rural broadband, Councillor McMillan Douglas mentions the success rate, which is very welcome indeed. I just think just have to acknowledge the few percentage people who have been left behind. I've had quite a few contacts recently with people, especially now that we're trying to work from home more often, and that there are people that have been left behind, and we mustn't forget about them and must strive towards the 100% target. Thank you. But the report is excellent, like the previous report. There's so much good things in it. So congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. Yes, it's full of good news, that report. Are there any other comments? No. Councillor Davey.
Sorry, the chair. I was just trying to find the button. Yes, it was. It's essentially to focus on the economic aspect of the report, and perhaps a wee comment in response to Councillor Duff. It's £26.5 million in direct funding for Angus coming from the UK Government. And we will recall his recent view that he wouldn't wish this to be paid, as he would have liked us to have left the UK by then. But I digress. Whilst everyone will acknowledge how difficult it is just now, we must still plan for the future and ensure we do everything we can to support the future growth of our local economy. The report, as has already been mentioned, there's fantastic developments in the North Angus corridor to ensure we build on the work of Montrose and our areas of excellence. As some will recall, we even have plans for Scotland's first drone port, some of the largest renewable energy developments anywhere in Scotland, and world-beating investment in agri-tech, just to name a few. Our economy will be hit because of COVID, and there's no doubt about that. But thanks to the broad shoulders of the UK, our businesses and our workers and jobs are being supported with billions in borrowing. And even just today, we saw the extension until March. And Angus locally needs to play our part to build the infrastructure, the roads, the business premises, the railheads, the broadband connections, and everything else to allow our economy to recover. It is pleasing to see progress being done in so many of these areas. plans to sell our unused buildings to local groups, find community uses. It's great to see our investment in world-beating sectors. The ink is ready to go for the Tier Cities deal, and we have ambitious plans for building in Montrose and the surrounding area. We are one of the only local authorities in Scotland to maintain free parking. We have a business group ready to set up to look at plans to support our economy, the Mercury project, low carbon housing investments, commitments to spend more of our procurement locally, keep council tax and business charges competitive and as low as possible, a focus to assist planning and businesses who want to find premises. I've seen how supportive Angus Council are and our officers are, but we can always do better and we must do more. We have a huge natural advantage as we come out of COVID in Angus and aim to support jobs in our local businesses. So can I just really welcome all the work that's been done in these areas? I think it really shows the commitment we have in Angus to supporting our local economy with what limited powers local authorities do have. And for people wanting to relocate to Angus to work from home in picturesque countryside with fast broadband, a business-friendly council, we say welcome. We want you to come and invest and spend here. And it's certainly my hope. This is a very difficult time now for so many, and more restrictions may come and the hard times ahead. But I do hope that once we are through this, I do think the future of the local economy is bright in Angus because we have huge opportunities. I hope others can see that and choose to live, work and invest in Angus.
Hey, Convener, just at a point of order, I think Councillor Davey is incorrect. There are other councils in Scotland that have free parking.
Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you.
Apologies, I said one of the only councils, one of the few.
Thank you. Councillor Boyd.
Yes, I am picking up on that as well. I couldn't believe when I heard Councillor Davies saying that about the free car parking. He voted on 3 occasions, yes, 3 occasions to when other councillors, both Councillor Cheap and myself, brought 3 different motions over an 18-month period. You voted against that free car parking situation. Let's have some truth here.
Councillor Boyd, has this got to do with this report? Because I don't think it does.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Right, Councillor Fairweather has moved the report. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, the next one is agenda item number 8, the Angus Joint Child Poverty Local Action Plan. We have the report and the recommendations. Any questions? Councillor Speed.
Sorry, it's a comment, Chair. It was more a comment.
Okay, any questions then? Okay, if there are no questions, then we will go to comments. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the opportunity to speak because we must never stay silent when it comes to child poverty. I'm encouraged by the way in which the Council and partner organisations continue to come together to respond to the coronavirus and play a vital role to step up their efforts to reduce child poverty. COVID-19 may be a complex issue, but upholding the human rights of a child or family struggling should not be. I would like to commend the many individuals and community groups who have recognised more so than ever people's struggles and disadvantage, and who have set up social media group pages and local drop-off points for people to post and share clothing, household items, furniture, food and acts of kindness. The pandemic is not over, and we are already starting to see the impact it's had on child poverty and the effect that it will continue to have for years to come. With more people across Angus facing hardship, we predict an increase in child poverty in Angus as household finances are put under increased strain and unemployment increases. We must make sure that what we do makes a real difference to families in Angus struggling to make ends meet. This is why initiatives such as the Holiday Food and Fund programme and the online benefits calculator are so important. It's crucial to highlight that since May 2019, almost 7.5 million of unclaimed benefit has been identified and confirmed, with 3.4 million in the first critical week of lockdown. Last year, I remember at this very time reporting statistics of approximately 19% of children in Angus experiencing growing up in poverty, 28.5% in my own ward of Arbroath East and Lunan. We know that this has increased and we should all be extremely concerned. We must continue to do more, not only to tackle but eradicate poverty in Angus, as every child has the right to dignity and a decent life. We must break the stigma. There should be no shame. I urge you, my colleagues and everyone, to get involved to ensure that we develop the right services for the people of Angus. And for those who may be struggling, please do not suffer alone. I know that the first steps to seeking help can be really difficult, but please do get in touch to get the help and support you need. As long as child poverty and inequality exists in Angus, we should not truly rest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Chair. I was actually trying to get my hand up to ask a question, but the button wouldn't work in time. I totally endorse everything that Councillor Speed has said and commend our community volunteers for filling the gap at the early stages of the pandemic. I've always said I would love to see our ambition around eradicating child poverty, and I think it's feeling harder to see that happen at the minute because of the pandemic and the situation we're in, but I still think it's something that we should be striving for rather than reduce it. So I would just like everyone to hold that thought and to see if we can set ourselves a real stretch target on that. I'm also concerned that there's still £7.5 million in unclaimed social security in Angus. I know our welfare rights team probably on average help people to claim around about £6 or £7 million a year. So that outstanding amount is really concerning. And I just wondered if any of the officers had any insight into the main barriers for people claiming those benefits, and any more detail on how we could maybe target people to get the money that they're entitled to. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I know it's very difficult to try and get the technology to work sometimes, and we are on comments, but if that was your question, that's absolutely fine. We can allow that. Mr. Lorimer, is that maybe one for you?
Possibly more so myself.
Oh,
well,
sorry.
I'm happy to come in, Chair.
Okay, I'll give the general, and Ian, I'm sure, will give the specifics. But certainly, Councillor Bell, that's a very well made point, and one that the Child Poverty Working Group are working really hard on, and Ian's team, particularly the Welfare Rights team, are working tirelessly with individuals and families to maximise their benefit uptake. And actually, through the online benefits calculator, what we've identified is a whole raft of new evidence and new cases where those issues have been picked up and dealt with. So actually, I think whilst you're right to highlight the unclaimed benefits, we're actually having significant success and progress in Angus in terms of putting individuals in touch with the benefits that they're entitled to and ensuring that they maximise the value they get from the benefits system. Ian may have more specifics on individual cases.
Mr. Lorimer, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Not so much in terms of details of specific cases, but yeah, this is something that we're very well aware of, particularly from a welfare rights point of view, and it's something that we're continuing to try and chip away at. We've got a number of things that have happened in recent months. We had a Poverty Awareness Week last month. There's Money Week coming up this week, all of which is aimed at trying to get people to engage and to try and provide support and advice and help to people so they can make those claims. And it's really just part and parcel of what welfare rights do. We also have working groups engaging with other agencies. So the Scottish Social Security Agency, we work with them. So if it's something that we can't help with, we can always refer on. So it's a difficult one, but it is something that is effectively at the top of our agenda. And as Mark says, there has been over the years some good success. And I think the benefits calculator that's been mentioned, the online calculator, has really helped to give people another route into which they can get advice, particularly in the midst of a pandemic when face-to-face services are more difficult to provide. So I hope that provides some reassurance that it's really a high priority for us. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Ian, and I reiterate the work that the Welfare Rights team does. They are amazing, and I get incredible feedback from constituents that I refer there for support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bell and Mr. Lorimer. Councillor Durno.
Thanks, convener. As Lois was saying, 28.5 children are living in poverty in our area. I welcome the early years agenda as well as our baby boxes. The new Scottish Government child payment for families on low income has been brought forward to the 15th of February 2021. This will be £10 a week for every child under 16, which is for families on low incomes, but it's going to be very welcome. There's no limit on these payments depending on the amount of children. This will not be affected by universal credit or other tax credits. This could support 194,000 children this financial year, and it's hoped to be expanded to children under 16 by 2022. It's great that the Scottish Government's doing this for our area, and I think it will make a difference, especially with all the redundancies and etc. that's going to be coming up in the next few months. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durno. Councillor Blaze.
Yes, thank you, convener. Just to point out too that while, of course, when it comes to reducing poverty, we really need to try and get more of that £7.5 million into the pockets of the people who are really needing it. But of course, there's an economic benefit for Angus too, because much of that money would be spent in our local economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blaze. Councillor Sturrock.
Thank you, Chair. Just a query. On page 142, there is a table which shows a compilation, a set of indicators. There's two columns, 1920 and the baseline 1819. Can it be clarified the data within each of these columns? Is this pertinent to Angus only, or is this a national baseline and a national 1920 numbers?
Mr. Armstrong or Mr. Lorimer?
Yep, convener, thank you. That, as it says at the bottom of that table, the source is the annual population survey that comes out from the Scottish Government, but as I recall, that is the Angus situation that's detailed locally.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Hands.
Thanks, convener. Yes, I was just wondering in terms of the 7.5 million, in terms of, is it money not claimed, or is it money that has been, some of it anyway, has been achieved on appeal? Because certainly as previous experience of working with CAB and also as an Angus CAB director, so much of their work's involved in actually appealing decisions for families. So to me, I think it'd be also worthwhile, and I hope this does happen in terms of working with DWP staff in Angus in the hope that we get these decisions made first time, so that it avoids the necessity for the appeals. And of course, I can't help but thinking in terms of the decline that we've seen in the amount of universal credit available to families, both that are not working and even working families. We can't today just sit here and feel shocked about the figures we're reading, which we are, without acknowledging the fact, if we allow the changes that have happened in the welfare state that have happened, it's no surprise that we're finding families in this situation. And I think it did shock a number of people about the percentage that also results in families with either one or more adults in work as well. So I think it's upon every single one of us to try and ensure and lobby for a more inclusive welfare benefit system, rather than accusing people and blaming them, which was the culture. we should actually be giving people a decent amount of income to live on. And I certainly hope it's not too long before we see universal basic income introduced and we can start to make a real difference to young people's lives. It's not their fault about any of it, but as decision makers, it's our responsibility to speak up and make sure we're proactive in making meaningful changes.
Thank you, Councillor Hans. Thank you. Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say that, yeah, these are all very important points that we're mentioning on the benefit side of things, but there are actually 3 strands to addressing the child poverty. Access to benefits is just one of the 3. But can I bring Mark Armstrong in just to clarify these other 2 points so that we can get a little bit of narrative on that as well, please?
Yeah, certainly, Convener, as detailed within page 124 of the report and as really supported by the Scottish Government in terms of their overall policy direction on this. And in Angus, we're working on all 3 of these elements. So there's income from employment, and as has been mentioned at present, there are particular challenges on the back of the economic impact of the pandemic, but there's a lot of work going on to address that. And then the cost of living. So particularly areas of work around the cost of the school day would be one that I would highlight, and how we work together as partners and with employers and with families to enable them to really maximise the benefits under all these 3 strands are really key to all of the work of the child poverty agenda in Angus.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell, your hand is still up. Maybe it's just meant to be lowered. Thank you. Okay, any further comments? Okay, I'm going to move the report. Is this report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, agenda item number 9, is the former Lochside Leisure Centre consultation. I'll just get item 9 up. And I believe, without putting you on the spot, Mr. Cochrane, you're going to speak to this one.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for that. Just as a brief introduction to members to the report, if I may. As you know, the building was declared surplus in May 2018, and the council has no further use for the building. And we anticipate that if it is to be reused, then it will be others that would take it on. So with the court decision, as we're all aware of, the decision of the council to demolish the building in February 2019 has been set aside. And therefore the council doesn't actually have a view at the current time on the future of the building beyond declaring it surplus. And the court decision requires us to consult under Section 104 of the Community Empowerment Act, which is national legislation. And as part of that consultation, we actually need to have a proposal to put to those that we are contacting, whether that's a change of use or a form of disposal. So in order to inform the council on its decision, what we've put forward in this report is a proposal that is in 2 phases. It's similar to how we consult on our schools programme. Phase 1 will inform the decision that the council needs to make, and then phase 2 will consult on that decision under Section 104 of the Act. So the proposal in Appendix 2 sets out these 2 phases. In phase 1, we propose to provide the consultees with information on the building and the opportunities that come forward, and present a number of options and allow any other options to come forward as well to be considered and to respond to. These responses will then be analysed and reported to you as members at the appropriate council meeting for you to make a decision on the building, and thereafter we can undertake the formal Section 104 consultation. The government guidance on that consultation is that the periods for the consultation should be 8 weeks, and we've applied that to both phase 2 and phase 1 of the proposals in Appendix 2. And of course, once we have the responses from the public, we will also need time to analyse it and set that out in a report to you. And therefore, that's the timescale that we have established in the appendix. And just one further note, we've said in the appendix that we would consult with community groups in the Thorthor area. An update on legal advice is that needs to be groups across Angus. So with that, thank you, Chair, for allowing me the time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMillan-Douglas, your hand's up.
Convener, thank you very much. I very much welcome this report and the very clear introduction by Ian Cochrane. Thank him for that. The great thing about this report is that it commits us to full consultation on the use of the former Lochside Leisure Centre. And that is something which is certainly to me immensely welcome. This order must allow people to come forward and to really get involved in the consultation. And it must also allow time for people to formulate ideas onto how to use the centre. So I am moving an amendment. I hope people will not think it's a major amendment. I'm moving the amendment that we accept the report in full with one exception. And the exception is that we extend the closing date for the phase 1 informal consultation from the 31st of January 2021 to the 28th of February 2021. And all linked dates will also move by 1 month. I understand that there will now be a paper distributed, I think, from the Finance Director, which will make the details clear.
Councillor McMillan-Douglas, have the other members of the council seen the terms of your amendment?
They have not, because, well, I don't think they have seen it. It is held by Mr. Lorimer at the moment.
Convener, just to clarify, I have circulated the paper that Councillor McMillan-Douglas refers to in all its detail to all members to give them the opportunity to assess what has been proposed. And if the chair would wish a short recess or to allow members to acquaint themselves with the content.
15-minute recess before anything else? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Chair, I think there's also, can I just note, I think there's a note of a second amendment as well that people should be aware of as well coming up.
Convener, could I please have a bit of clarification, please?
Yes, Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you. I'm just a little bit confused. I know that some members of our group have had trouble putting in last minute amendments and they've been turned down because they're last minute, and we haven't had prior notice of the, well, it seems very last minute. Can I just get a little bit of clarification around the process for last minute amendments, please?
Mr. McCaskill, or would it be Mrs. Buchanan that would answer this?
I think the process can be articulated either by myself or Mrs. Buchanan, Convener. In terms of standing orders, the timescales are set out. It is 5 p.m. on the day preceding the meeting. So amendments have been lodged in accordance with that time frame, and it's been subject to consultation by the appropriate officers. As you know, Chair, it is not custom and practice for us to circulate the terms of any amendment until they are formally proposed at that meeting, and I have now circulated the terms of that amendment.
Okay, we'll have a recess, members, until we can read this. Thank you, Mr. McCaskill.
Convener, can I just ask the IT host if you can now stop the live